Tech Time Traveler here, and welcome to the very first video of 2023. This is going to be coming up on the third year for this channel. And it's basically the new year, Christmas is over, and I have been emptying my freight forwarder box down in the US, which is full of stuff that I have accumulated over a few months. I haven't really been doing a lot of purchasing lately. I've been trying to sort of scale back a little bit because I'm not liking the direction the economy is going right now. I'm noticing the prices for a lot of this stuff is starting to kind of ease off a little bit. So that's usually a sign that maybe you want to wait because a better deal will be coming along. Generally what I've been doing lately is just kind of bargain hunting. So I'm just religiously checking the vintage computer listings on eBay and looking around forums and places for just any good deal that sort of pops up, anything cheap, anything that doesn't cost a lot to ship. Shipping has become a real bugbear of mine because it's gotten really crazy expensive to ship big things, and that's kind of taking the fun out of the hobby, I think, because it's just, you pay 50 bucks for something or 100 bucks for something, but it's going to cost you $100 or $150 to ship it up here, and it's just like, no, because that's in the US. Then you got to import it, then you got to pay tax, everything else, no thanks. So yeah, I've just been doing little things lately. To start things up, what's in this box is something that is not super valuable, and I don't know how rare they are. I got it for a very good price. It was, I think, around 60 bucks, something like that. In this box is the very first Toshiba laptop. I'm using air quotes because it wasn't truly a laptop. It's basically the first clamshell style, LCD equipped portable computer that they ever made. This is the Toshiba T1100, not to be confused with the T1100 Plus, which I've got here and I'll show you just for a comparison. This was literally the very first. My dad, who was the major computer purchaser in our family, the only person who had enough money to buy them, was a very loyal Toshiba customer. The very first clamshell style portable computer I had any experience with was an IBM convertible. But that belonged to his company. It was incredibly expensive. It was like something like $11,000 or some crazy amount of money. And I was only allowed to use that under very, very strict supervision. And it was only available to us for a short time. Later on, he got, I want to say it was either a T1100 Plus or a T1200. And I'm thinking it was a T1200 because the 1200 had a hard drive, and I'm 99% sure, well, maybe 80% sure ours had a hard drive. So yeah, we started there and then we worked our way up. We had like a T5100, a T3100, and they were great machines. They were extremely reliable. I have a whole bunch of them here that I've collected over time. They're quite bulky and heavy compared to a modern laptop, but they still work. They're absolutely bulletproof. As I've said, I don't like to collect a lot of x86 PC stuff because, you can just go right down a rabbit hole. You could fill your whole basement with all the different products that are out there. But because I have such great memories using and playing with my dad's Toshibas, I have kind of set aside a little bit of a quota to collect Toshiba stuff, and having the very first one I think was a must, especially since it just sort of popped up one day and it was cheap. So yeah, we're going to open it up here and see what's inside. And then I also have some other boxes, a few other things I'll show off here that I think are neat. And then I have a few other boxes of things that I personally am really into. One of them is super, super mega rare, and I'm really thrilled to have that, but I'm going to save it for last. So yeah, let's get started on this guy and have a look at the very first Toshiba portable laptop computer. Please, please let it be okay. Wouldn't that be nice to start off the new year with a new acquisition that isn't destroyed? Okay, here we go. All right, looking good. Looking good. Oh, the corner's exposed. That's not good. I don't know who packed this, but okay, so like this is how much box there is, and the laptop probably accounts for like about that much of it. But they've packed it all on the top. So it's got tons of padding on the bottom, but it has almost none up top here. But let's see what it looks like. Wow, actually, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of hopeful. Yeah, there's a couple little chips on the corners. That could be from before though. Alrighty. Well, folks, there it is. That is the original Toshiba laptop portable thingy. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is cool. I don't know, I probably have almost no use for it. And you can tell right away it's the first. It's just a little bit different than the T1100 Plus. Kind of appropriate in a way to be opening this as Toshiba just exited the laptop business recently. But yeah, you can see it has the basic form factor of the later Toshiba T1100 plus 1200 and so on. But it's a little different. It's a little boxier. Let's just take out the T1100 here for comparison. Or rather, that's the T1100 Plus. And you can see broadly, they're pretty darn similar in terms of shape and overall size. The T1100 is a little bit more hard-edged, I guess would be the word. Things on the T1100 are a little bit more rounded, a little smoother, more aerodynamic, I guess. But otherwise, yeah, it looks pretty darn similar. One thing that jumps out at me right away, the floppy drives on the T1100 Plus look like standard PC floppy drives with the bezel that we're used to seeing. But the T1100, the floppy drive looks like that. Like that looks ancient. I don't know if that's an original Sony that's in there or if that's one of their own designs, but yeah, look how big that is. Okay, so that's that. On the side of the T1100, we have a floppy drive switch, A and B, and then PRT, which I think is printer port. And that basically, I think, selects which drive is the boot drive. And then we have our LCD contrast here, no brightness control or anything like that because it's not backlit. On the T1100, let's see what we got. Yeah, I mean, fairly similar. We've got a power switch, no drive select switch though, and then we've got our LCD contrast. Perfect. Let's take a look at the back. So for the T1100 Plus, we've got a COM port, printer, floppy disk port, RGB out, composite out, and then we've got a modem, and of course our power and our little teeny tiny, ridiculously placed power switch, which I hate. I don't know why they did that. It made so much more sense to have the power switch on the side, you know, kind of makes more sense. Anyway, on the back of the T1100, we've got a printer port, and then we've got a separate port for the external floppy drive, and it's quite wide. We've also got an internal and external floppy drive selector switch, RGB out, composite out, and then this selects which display the computer is running off of, either the internal one or an attached CRT. On the later Toshibas, they used a function key, I think, to basically soft switch between the two, but on this one it's an actual switch. It looks like our power is 18 volts in, which hopefully I should have around here somewhere. And then we've got our RS-232 port, and we've got a modem. So yeah, pretty well equipped machine here. Now, how do they compare internally? Well, here is the T1100 Plus, and yeah, the screen is, I don't think it broke. I don't think anything broke it. I think basically it's becoming delaminated or something internally. It's had this little spot that's been gradually growing to resemble Ireland. But yeah, this one, unfortunately, it has an internal battery that died, and my understanding with these is you can't operate it without the battery at least somewhat working. And I've seen a number of repair videos on how to fix it, and I've tried to kind of figure it out, but yeah, it's a bit over my head. These aren't very well documented for repair purposes, so kind of is what it is there. But you can see it's got your classic mid-80s laptop keyboard layout. You got your basic keyboard here. You've got a row of function keys, following, I guess, the XT standard up to F10, and your special function keys up there, your arrow keys down the bottom right. This is pretty much the format that Toshiba followed all the way up through the T5000 series. You know, slightly different coloration to the keys, but otherwise pretty much, you know, your standard XT class keyboard look. On the T1100, however, things look a little different. Now, I'm gonna just say a prayer here that nothing is busted, because I had another laptop that I received recently, and it looked great on the outside, but because it was getting bounced around in the very poorly packed box, it actually somehow managed to shear off all the keys inside. So I'm really hoping it looks right. Oh, there it is. Yes, and nothing's broken. Oh my God. Oh, that's a relief. But yeah, you can see this kind of reminds me of like the earlier 80s keyboards of the day. You know, the key legends are centered and they're quite large compared to the later ones. And they haven't quite figured out the layout here. I guess, you know, this is their first effort. So they've got the basic keyboard here. They've got your function keys arranged in kind of a weird pattern. This doesn't even make any sense. You got F1, F2, F3, and it kind of goes like that. I probably would have done it the other way, like F1 through F5 and F5 through F10, but that's the way they chose to do it. And then they've attempted to give you a number pad of sorts with your directional arrow keys, because you don't have any down here. And yeah, it's not in any order that most people would be used to. Yeah, like even the arrows are not really natural. Like up is over here, down is over here, and then left and right are there. So yeah, I think playing a game on this would not be very fun. You know, we've got our print screen, number lock and stuff over there. Yeah, it's kind of weird looking, but another thing I noticed here, it's got this low battery light. I didn't think the original 1100 had a battery, but I guess maybe it does, which is probably not a good thing, because that means that battery is almost certainly dead and this thing is not going to start up. But we will try starting it up just to see what it does. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased overall though. Like it's not evidently damaged. I mean, there's obviously some wear from use here, but there's no cracks anywhere. I mean, there's a bit of a dent there on the corner, but that's could have been from years ago. All right, I will try and find an 18-volt adapter and we'll see if we can turn this thing on or what happens. Okay, so for power, it looks like we need 18 volts center positive. And what I've found in my shop, I'm sure I have an 18-volt actual somewhere, but I can't find it right now. I've got this IBM ThinkPad adapter and it is 19 volts. I'm not sure what the amperage required for this is, but I'm hoping 2.4 is enough. We're just gonna see if it actually does anything, and I'm thinking it probably won't. And it is 1 volt over at 19, but that's usually not a problem. You know, as long as you're not running it for a long period of time. Now, will the barrel plug fit? This was always my least favorite thing with laptops. Actually, it's still my least favorite thing today. It's all the different connectors they put on them. I don't want to force you to buy their particular adapter or whatever the hell they're doing. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully no sparky. Let's get her open. All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness, it turns on. But that is all it does. No, that is it. That is all this thing does. Oh man, what a disappointment. Yeah, kind of to be expected, I guess. It's running a fan, but that's about all it's doing. All right, well, that's unfortunate. But yeah, let's see what else Santa brought. So we have another box full of interesting things. All right, what else have we got? What else? Oh, oh yeah. All right, so this, I have been waiting for eons to get my hands on what's in here. It's not just a binder. There is actually a board in here. Those of you that have watched a bunch of my videos have probably seen a fair amount of Ohio Scientific Instruments gear. One of my first at-length videos that I ever did was the OSI 300 trainer board. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. If nothing else, it's a study in how not to make a YouTube video. I am a very active collector of OSI gear. I've mostly been focused on the home products as opposed to the corporate side because there's a lot of variation on the corporate side. They have all these OEM machines and all this stuff, and I don't have the room for that, and it's kind of hard to find. It's very expensive to ship because it's all really heavy. So I've been focused on just the home side and filling in each model. And initially with OSI, it was just boards. They didn't really have a full-on system offering, I don't think, until they came out with the Challenger 2. And that was probably, I think it was a year or two into production. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, the first video, you probably saw this guy, which is my OSI 300 trainer. That's the first product that they made towards the end of 1975. And you can see they've got an extremely early, that's a September of 1975 MOS 6502 on there. So that's pretty close to as early as you can get. So they must have been one of the first customers for that. Then I had a 500, which I don't have present right now. I think it's in one of my Challenger cases. That was sold basically as a board by itself, and it was a decent little computer for its day. But in between those was the OSI 400, and for years and years I was looking for this and I could never find it. And then finally, well, one came up recently and I just missed it, and I was kind of crying in my soup about it. I'm not even sure if it's a real one or not because it's not through-plated. It doesn't have any of the tinning that these boards usually do, and the person that built it used wire wrap sockets. So I don't know, I showed it to the OSI guys. They kind of thought it might be like a prototype, possibly, which would be, yeah, okay, I'm gonna cry some more. But it may or may not be a real. It could have been one that somebody just put together themselves. Anyway, I wanted to fill this gap pretty badly, so I kept watching, and finally my ship came in, sort of. So basically, this is just an unbuilt OSI 400 board. And you can see it is a legit board. The substrate is the right color. We've got the little manufacturer markings there. No idea exactly when this board was made, but yeah, that is the 400. And yeah, this is important because this is kind of the first real computer that they built. The 300 technically is a computer, but there's no practical use for it. It's basically a trainer to teach you how to use a microprocessor. This is a real computer. There was a firmware of sorts available that OSI made that allowed you to have, I think, a basic system monitor and some other stuff. And I think this can run either a 6502 or a 6501 or a 6800. And that's something I didn't know. I thought this only ran the 6502. So yeah, there it is. I mean, that is an original unbuilt OSI board. So yeah, it's not, unfortunately, a working computer, but you know, I seem to keep scoring these unbuilt kits, so I can't complain about that. It's nice to see it as it was. Will I build it? I think I might, because there is a reproduction of this board out already. I think there was another one of these out there and they scanned it. So I don't think there's any pressing reason to leave it as is. I think it's better off as a computer. But for the moment, I'm just leaving it like that. OSI 400 CPUs is the heart of any OSI 400 or Challenger system. I don't know if this feels modern. That looks way too clean. Usually the old photocopies look more like this. Let's see. This looks like something somebody got from online. The paper is way too white. But yeah, that's a schematic. That's more schematic. Yeah, we got HTTP, so definitely that's modern stuff. Which is great, but what I'm really interested in is the vintage. So you can see we've got a date of July 1st, 1976, and that's pretty close to when this board came out. I think this board came out literally at the end of June of 1976. So this is an early manual. Thank you, the OSI staff. And yeah, there's no parts with it. So whoever ordered this, I don't think may have had any intention of building it. You can see that they did offer parts for ordering, but it doesn't look like there's anything. They would have had it in the list here, I would think, as shipped, although they didn't note the board, so maybe I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, it looks like the original owner of this basically did what a lot of hobbyists, or would-be hobbyists, did, and they just ordered the barest kit with the intention of building it later, and then they just never got around to it, either because you know, they kind of were overwhelmed, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, or maybe something better came along, better, faster, cheaper, and they just skipped over it, tucked this in a drawer somewhere, and that was it. But yeah, we can see they mentioned the 6800 and the 6501 clock. Yeah, it would be amazing to install a 6501 on this, but those are about $5,000, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, this will be, I will definitely check against whatever they have online for this, because sometimes there's different revisions of these manuals, and it's kind of neat to have the earliest ones. Yeah, Superboard can accept 2 1702 prompts, so not a lot of room to do very much, but enough to just barely get it operational. And they had a few different firmwares, I guess you could say, available for each different processor. I've only ever seen the one for the 6502 though. Yeah, 65V or 68V monitor. That's the name of the monitor. And there were different monitors offered too, depending on whether you were using a video board in conjunction with this, or whether you were just using a teletype or serial terminal. This looks like somebody's, I guess it's an overlay? Yeah, okay, so they've got an overlay there. And then that's over the red and blue diagram, which tells you how things are lined up. Yeah, just a wealth of information in here. And it looks like we've got, yeah, so this is the thing that makes me think that other board may not have been 100% legit, because if they have the artwork for this side, there's a good chance they have the artwork for the other side somewhere. And if you have both of those things, then you could just skip around OSI and make your own. Probably not the biggest cost savings, but yeah, some guys just like to roll their own. That's just how they were. And there's MOS technology. Doesn't say what year that came out. Oh, May 1976. Preliminary data sheet. Wow. Yeah, so that's early. 400 board goes here. But yeah, that is an OSI 400, also known as the Superboard. And yeah, that's really cool. I now have pretty much the 300, the 400, the 500, and then the 600 I also have in a Challenger case. So I've pretty much got that whole range covered for now. And I'm hoping one day I will get the time to actually build this. And of course, if I do, I'll video the thing. But yeah, that's that one for now. Okay, so here's box number 2. Similar size, a little bit heavier. But yeah, let's give it an open. I don't think there's anything that FedEx could have destroyed in here, maybe. It was from my freight forwarder box, so I don't know exactly. It's just sometimes you can't always tell. You usually have to order pictures from the freight forwarder in order to be able to figure out what exactly was sent, because it's not always obvious from the manifest. But in this case, so let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is an example of how MyUS saves you a little bit on reshipping things, because basically they take things that came in separate parcels and then they put them together into one. So this is great. This is packed fairly tightly. I'll kind of have hope nothing's destroyed in here, but we'll find out. So the first thing is this guy, which I don't know what this is. It's like a board of some sort. It's pretty bad when you don't remember half the things you bought. So I just kind of buy little things here and there, and then I let them build up at the freight forwarder box. And after a while, I run out of time to store them there, and I just ship them all here. Oh, it's already open at one end. Duh. Okay. What is in here? All right, what have we got? Oh, yes. This was a last-minute purchase. I just saw it pop up. So I actually have this mouse. It came with my PC Junior, and I did not get the pad for it. And unfortunately, it's one of those early optical mice that requires the special pad, the track pad. I don't know what the right term for it is, but the mouse needs that in order to figure out where it's going. Yeah, this was the first mouse we ever had in my family. My dad, who's normally pretty frugal, for some reason decided to splurge on one of these, despite the fact that it was totally unnecessary for what we were doing. And yeah, I remember playing with, I'm pretty sure it was PC Paintbrush and a couple other things. But that's cool that it came with the box, because now I can put the whole thing together in its original box here and keep all that. You know, it's not something that I use, have much need for on a daily basis, but it's something that brings back some happy memories, right? So yeah, check that out one of these days. Okay, which one of these do we open first? I'm just trying to guess what's in here. I think I'll open this one first. Oh, that's heavy. Okay, let's just put that aside for a sec. So, it's like Russian dolls here. Russian dolls of vintage computer parts. Ah, yes. And it's not damaged, it's not damaged. It's not damaged. Well, that's always a plus. Thank you, FedEx. It must be because it's Christmas. All right. Small, but very, very dense. Yeah, this is it. This is the 20 megabyte original Apple hard drive, the very first Apple produced hard drive available for the Macintosh. And yeah, not to be confused with the 20, I think it's called the 20SC, which is the SCSI version. This one uses a floppy drive connection because SCSI, unfortunately, wasn't available on the first two models of Mac. It didn't become available until a little bit later. I feel like I'm holding the classic Mac desktop icon for the hard drive right here in my hand. I mean, this is probably what it was modeled on. Yeah, pretty decent size. Obviously, it's the same footprint as the Mac. And yeah, we've got our floppy drive cable. It looks like you can daisy chain another floppy drive on there so you don't lose that ability, which on the 128K Mac in particular would be really bad. Got a huge fan on it. And yeah, I can kind of see the hard drive in there. It's kind of difficult to see through the grate, but it is there. And there it is, Macintosh hard disk 20. Wow, yeah, this is the original thing. And yeah, this isn't the first hard drive that was available for the Mac. The very first one was the Tecmar, and that was it was a dual drive unit. It had a 5 megabyte floppy on top, and it had a 5 megabyte removable hard drive cartridge system on the bottom by SideQuest. I actually have one of those. I've been working on restoring it, and I've managed to get a SideQuest drive for it, but unfortunately the hard drive cartridges are almost impossible to find. So yeah, I wonder if we could get into this thing. I don't really see very many screws. I don't see any screws on it. They must be under the feet, but I'm kind of reluctant to pull those off. Let's see here. Or is it like a tab or something? Knowing Apple, it might just be. Oh, that comes loose. Okay. All right, that comes loose. Can we get in there? I have a bad feeling it's held by this one screw in the back here. I don't know if you can see it, but I can't really tell what type of screw that is. It looks like it might be one of those keyed ones. I'll see if I can find. I just want to look at the insides of this thing. Luckily I have my kit here that I bought from the source, which used to be Radio Shack before they packed it in. One of these might be the right screw. No, let's not make any contact. Let's try a really big one. Oh, I think that's actually, is that turning it? I think it is. Okay, let's see if that drops. No, not quite. I just can't see if it's actually moving or not. No, maybe this size will work better. Ah, there we go. Now I got a grip. How far does this go? There we go. There's our screw. Thank you, Apple, for not making this a nightmare. All right, what do we got here? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is obviously the special adapter board that makes it possible to use the floppy port on the Mac for this hard drive. The hard drive, I don't think is anything special internally. I think it's just one of a variation of Rhodim hard drives, but the interface on it is definitely custom for Apple. So that is one of the problems with this drive. When it dies, yeah, you won't find a replacement drive for this because it's definitely specific. And unfortunately, that's a habit that Apple has carried on and off literally to this day. If you have a MacBook with their custom special SSD that costs 3 times the price of a regular off-the-shelf one, then you know what I'm talking about. Definitely looks like it's been pretty well used. Lots of dust everywhere. I'm just gonna blow some of that out. I need to get an air compressor. I'm getting too old to do that. But yeah, that's the HD20. So yeah, maybe we'll fire it up here and just see what it does. Pray it doesn't explode or anything. Where's my cable here? Yeah, I mean, there could be any number of issues with the power supply. There could be problems with the drive. We could have a reefa explosion if there's a reefa cap in there, which usually there would be. But that's part of the fun. The seller did mention that they had spun it up once. They weren't sure if it was actually bootable because they didn't have a Mac to test it, so it was sold as untested. You know, those kind of auctions. But yeah, I can't blame them. It's, you know, almost 40 years old. All right, so we're gonna plug it in there. Let's say a prayer. It's not gonna blow. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay. See our little blinky light blinking away there. That certainly sounds pretty healthy. Wow. Yeah, we got a solid green. If I remember correctly, that means it's ready. Holy smokes. I don't hear any grinding. There's no error message I can see being flashed up there. So, yeah, fan's working. Holy cow. Could this thing actually boot? Oh, let's put it back together and we'll find out. That is nice and easy to take apart too. Thank you, Apple. Just tighten that up. And we're ready to test. All right, so I'm gonna hook it up to my Mac Plus. It's the most reliable of my compact Macs. Amazingly, I don't actually have a 512K. I do have a 128K original Mac, but it's kind of being restored and is not fully functional. Yeah, let's plug this in. That goes there. That's in the floppy port. Apparently it'll work off of any Mac that has that floppy port, so we're about to find out. All right, here's our Mac Plus all ready to go. I'm going to turn on the hard drive first and let it warm up. That's sort of what I'm used to doing with my Apple Lisa. I have no idea if this is going to boot. What I read about this drive for the 128K Mac, I don't think the 128K Mac is capable of booting from a hard drive at all, even one that connects to the floppy port. I read it requires some kind of special extensions to even operate. Might be wrong on that. If I am, let me know in the comments. The 512 and later, as far as I know, they can boot from it. So it's possible this has something bootable on it, but on the other hand, maybe not. It might have been wiped, or it may have just been used as a storage device. So, all right, we're gonna just turn on the Mac Plus here and we're gonna see what happens. Of course, if it doesn't boot, I can arrange a boot disk or get my SCSI 160 drive in here, boot off of that, and then see if I can see it at all. But so far, yeah, we got a solid green light. The Mac's not complaining that there's nothing there. Oh, what? It's actually working. That never happens. Never. Holy cow, that is incredibly lucky. Yeah, because like I said, the drive in here, the Rodime drive, is a unique part for this drive. So if that's dead, you have no chance of getting this thing repaired, because I don't think you could find that drive anywhere today. Holy cow, it's actually booting up. That's nuts. And when you consider the fact that I didn't pay very much for it, there was a few competing bids, but it didn't get very high. Yeah, for the first Apple-produced Mac hard drive, this is a pretty good deal. Look at that, we're right at a desktop. So what are we? So we are system 6.0.8. Wow. All right, and it looks like that's Frank in Hackerese. I don't know, that's how I'm pronouncing it. And there is the famous Macintosh hard drive, although, yeah, I guess maybe it's not exactly the same, the light's at the bottom left there. But that's the icon, and this is the original drive. All right, so a little archaeology here. We have a system folder, we have some paint applications, well, gotta check those out. Mac Graphic, Mac Draw. Is this actually going to work? I mean, so far it's sounding pretty good. I'm just waiting for a Refa cap to blow up, but yeah, okay, it is a little slower than the SCSI, but not dramatically. There's Mac Draw. Where is... Yeah, no, that's working. Okay, I'm not going to dwell too long on that. I just want to see what else is on this drive. I'm not going to save anything. That's so crazy. I mean, that's what, 1984, 38 years, and it still works. Tell me things weren't built different back then. I got a Mac Terminal, Mac Draw, let's see, Mac Write. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's working at a pretty acceptable clip. It's certainly better than swapping 400K floppies all day long. Yeah, no, that seems to work just fine. That's so crazy. I'm not seeing any data files, though. I always like to see those. You know, I don't want to get into people's business or anything, but I like to know, anything I can about the history of the machine, where it came from, what it was used for. Yeah, After Dark updater folder, what's in there? They have After Dark on this thing? They do. Oh my goodness. Show every 10 seconds. Well, let's just do a demo. I'm just going to move this down so we can actually see the demo somewhat. Nice. Cute. Okay, well that's a series of jokes. Let's see what this one does. I never really used After Dark. That was kind of a... Never really bothered with it. Yes, it's just random stars to keep the screen from burning in. Looks cool. Okay, well that works. Mac project folder. What we got here? It's this tutor folder. Abbott tutor. Aha, here's the data files. Looks like it was in use up to 1996. That's quite possible. 12-year-old hard drive, but I'll open one up here. If it has any kind of super sensitive personal information, I'll blur it out. I just want to see if this gives us any hints as to who owned this thing. Yeah, this is taking a little while. Is it going to work? Yeah, not super fast, but not out of line with, you know, how performance was in the early to mid 80s. Abbott, born 1880. Okay, so this is like somebody's genealogy project. It looks like Illinois is where they're from. I'm not going to go too deeply into this because I like to try and respect people's personal information, but these people were born in the 1800s, so I think it's safe to say, yeah, they're definitely dead. I guess at the time that this was being produced, this lady was still alive. Crazy. Yeah, so that's, no, I'm not going to change anything there. Well, yeah, that's kind of awesome. That's a working original Apple hard disk 20. You don't see those very often anymore. I don't know what I'll do with it. I'll probably fire it up now and again to sort of exercise it and try to keep it from seizing up. I'll probably pull it apart at some point and go into the power supply and see if there's any Reefa grenades in there waiting for me. But yeah, that is so crazy that that works. Well, that's eBay for you, you know. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Mostly lose, but every now and again you win. Okay, so the final thing, I've saved the best for last here. All right, well here's the final box. It's already open, and that's one thing I will mention about freight forwarders like MyUS, which is the company I use. When you ship things to them, they always open them up and do an inspection, and that's to make sure that you're not, you know, shipping illegal stuff, contraband, drugs, stuff like that. So unfortunately, because they're not experts at handling vintage computer equipment, they don't always put things back in the box properly, the way that the original shipper packed it. And that seems to be the case here. So yeah, we're just gonna hope that everything is okay. So yeah, so what's in this box is actually something very rare. This is a Martin Research Mic 3. Martin Research was a small company based out of, I think it was Chicago, and they released two machines at the same time, the Mic 2 and the Mic 3. I don't know if there was a Mic 1. As far as I know, those were the first microcomputer products that were available from them. And I think they came out around October or November of 1975. The first ads I can find for them were in Byte magazine in November 1975, so that seems to be about when they arrived. They offered two microprocessors. The Mic 3 was equipped with an Intel 8080, and then the Mic 2 was a cut-down version that had an 8008. As far as I know, they were otherwise the same. Like, they had four boards typically, I think. There was a display board, there was a RAM and EEPROM board, there might have been another RAM board or serial board, and I forget what the fourth board was, would be the CPU probably. And I think the Mic 2 and Mic 3 were otherwise identical except for the CPU board. I was kind of hoping this one was a Mic 2 that had been upgraded to a Mic 3 and that maybe the 8008 board was still around, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be the case. But that doesn't matter because this is still an incredibly rare and unique system. And yeah, I bought it back in October as a sort of birthday present to myself. It came up on eBay, and it had a buy it now option. I threw out a number that I could afford. I didn't really know what one of these are worth. You know, they are incredibly rare, but rare doesn't always mean super valuable in vintage computing terms, because there's a certain amount of something needing to be known in order for it to be popular enough to fetch a high price. And there are a lot of machines in my collection that are basically one-offs, and they did not collect a big dollar amount at auction just because they're relatively unknown. So yeah, luckily for me, the seller actually recognized my account and knew my YouTube channel, and he was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to give it to you for this price, and you know, hopefully it'll go to a good home. So I was super excited about that. Thank you so much for doing that, because I don't think I would have gotten one of these otherwise. Anyways, let's open up our box here. And the first thing I'm going to pull out is something that I think is pretty darn valuable in its own right. This is the documentation for the system. If you look online, you Google around, there's really not much about Martin Research. There's the ads in Byte magazine, and that was about all I could find. So let's see what we've got here. Okay, so the first page, 8080 CPU, 471 CPU is a complete 8-bit central processor on a single printed circuit board. Yada, 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 all the details about the system. Doesn't mention RAM, but it does say it can go up to 64 kilobytes. This looks like a modern photocopy of an old document, is my guess. The paper is in really good shape, so that's kind of got me thinking. Maybe the original documentation was copied for backup purposes and lost, or the seller or someone down the line opted to keep the original documentation. Yeah, looks like we've got some handwritten notes here, schematics. Don't know if these were the original owners or if these are the actual schematics that Martin Research provided. Hopefully not Martin Research's, but who knows. I have seen some pretty, you know, these smaller companies, sometimes you were lucky if you even got a schematic. But yeah, that looks... So yeah, I'm gonna guess this is probably not vintage, but nonetheless, it contains valuable information that I can scan and put online, because I don't think I've ever seen that before. What do we got here? So this is an ad for microcomputer design. It's in magazine glossy paper, so I think this probably was an offering in a magazine or a mail out or something. They seem to be advertising looks like a book, microcomputer design, and yeah, then a microprocessor at 8008 if you wanted it. Yeah, so it's the most efficient bus structure for the 8008 yet published. Complete communications controller with keyboard, only 19 chips, including 8008 ROM, RAM, and interface. 40 pages on interrupt handling. Yeah, so this is kind of like what Digital Group did at the very beginning of their company. They weren't offering a product. They were offering basically a booklet with instructions on how to upgrade a computer. At that time, it was the Mark 8, because they didn't have their own computer yet. And it looks like these guys are doing something similar. They're basically offering a book that contains a complete design for a microcomputer and tips on how to build one, and offering a microprocessor with it. So that might be the Mic 1 being offered. And then prices, as advertised, microcomputer design is available with one 8008 microprocessor for $100. Our blue chip special contains the book plus the 8008-1, which is the faster 8008, for $110. And the book is now available with the microprocessor for $200. The book alone costs $75. So that's a bit confusingly worded. Yeah, so you were into a couple $100 just for that whole thing. So yeah, this was published in May of 1975, it looks like. So this must be basically their first product. Yeah, this is just another reprint of that same article in a bigger format. And then we have what looks like a chapter outline, microcomputer design. Okay, so this is still an advertisement for the book, it looks like. So this just covers basically everything that is in the book. And you can see somebody's done some check marking here. So I don't know, maybe if they had the book. They got a question mark there, interval timers. Yeah, well, at least we know potentially where Martin Research began. What do we got here? This is blue. This is the Mic 2, so this is the 8008. I don't know if the camera will show it very well, but we've got, for a full kit, $44.95, and then you've got these additional boards. So for a complete assembled and tested system with the microprocessor, you were at $292.70. So that's, I don't know, 800 something probably in today's dollars. And that looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4 boards. Yeah, that's the typical thing, cable and the microprocessor. You could get it without the microprocessor for $239, or sorry, for $252. And then as a kit to build yourself, it looks like you could save about $60 for each. So yeah, I mean, that was a pretty reasonable price for 1975, given how expensive things were. The 8008 did kind of become obsolete fairly quickly, so yeah, that's okay. And then we have, okay, so this is the Mic 8. This is the Z80 version of this machine. I think they kept pretty much everything the same, again, except for the CPU board. I don't know exactly when the Mic 8 came up for sale relative to the other two. I think it would have been a year or two later. The Z80 came out, I want to say 1976, middle of 1976, somewhere in there. So yeah, they just skipped all the way from Mic 3 to Mic 8. I don't think there's a Mic 4, 5, and 6, and 7. I think it's just literally goes from Mic 2 and Mic 3 to Mic 8. Yeah, and then we got a price list for it and comparisons. Yeah, that gets way up there. 8080 system, Mic 3, $1,127. Ho, ho, ho. And the Z80 version, $991. There's a slight discount offered that gets you to $1,000, but still, that's that's expensive. But yeah, I mean, this is a really nice machine because it was all modular. You could add, they offered a whole bunch of breadboards, so you could add a whole bunch of things in. Yeah, no, wasn't cheap back then though. All right, and then we have a Martin Research Guide. Looks like they were in Northbrook, Illinois at this point. There's the book that they were offering, and there is the computer, which we will see shortly. And we got the microprocessor, Martin Research. Yeah, so this is basically a brochure, it looks like. And there is the Mic 2 with the 8008. Please note that special introductory prices are now in effect for our customers whose orders are received by November 15th, 1975. So yeah, that kind of tracks with where that first ad appeared in Byte magazine. And then you can see the Mic 3 is already being offered. So they were offered together, basically. One was just a cut down, slightly cheaper version of the first. Central processing unit, so that's the 441 8008. That'll be a board I keep my eye out for in case it ever becomes available. PROM and RAM board, 4 kilobytes of memory, a nice compact card. We've got our console board, which is basically just like a calculator keyboard with LED readout. Breadboard. Now see, they're calling it a breadboard. I was calling it that in another video, and a bunch of commenters called me out and said, no, it's not a breadboard, it's a, I don't know what they called it, proto board or something like that. But they're calling it a breadboard. This is a company that made this stuff, so I'm sticking with breadboard from now on. Too bad. And then we also have a printer here, it looks like they offered. Looks like a dot matrix thing. Yeah, it is. 110 character per second, 80 column dot matrix. That's cool. Another thing I'll put on my wish list. And then we have prices. So the Mic 3 microcomputer with the CPU board, 8080, monitor PROM, 512 bytes of RAM to start. Console board, breadboard, and manual and everything. Available November 1975. Special price, $495. So yeah, you're probably over $1,000 something in today's dollars. 1,200, 1,300 would be my guess. And then we've got a whole bunch of offerings. Parallel keyboard interface, breadboard, wire wrap socket kit, printer. That's by quote. Oh, they didn't give a price for that. Software packages, the demo PROM with a variety of demonstration programs, tests, the Mon 8 monitor, so that's their, basically their equivalent to like Southwest Technical Products, SwapBug or something like that. Bordeaux monitor, so that's monitored for, that is modified for 75 baud, 5 level, parallel in, serial out, so that's probably for teletype use, I think. And then a printer monitor, so you can use the printer, $160. That's not cheap. Some ribbon cables and stuff. Oh, and there's the advertisement for microcomputer design. And we can see, it's a pretty thick book. The book with a CPU, they've got it at 150. They reduced it from 200, so this guide is later than that piece of paper we were looking at. The book with the 8008-1 is 110. Book with 8008 is $100. Book alone, 75. So yeah, that's the first product. I don't think it came with that board. I think that's just one of their breadboards that they threw in there for picture purposes. What's this stuff here? We've got microcomputer product suggestions. Oh, so you could make suggestions on what they wanted, including what you expect to pay. That's kind of a dangerous card to put out there. That's the back of the book. And then the final thing, this looks like a listing for the Mic 2 monitor. Now, I don't remember very well the compatibility between the 8008 and the 8080. I believe the 8080 was backwards compatible with the 8008, so maybe this system monitor might have worked with some modification. I'm not really sure. But it looks like it's programmed in Octal, and that makes sense because we can see there's no letters on this keypad, it's all numbers. And Octal is kind of popular with some of the earliest microcomputer manufacturers. It's kind of lengthy. But yeah, that is the system monitor. All right, that completes our tour of the paperwork for the system. So now to get to the really fun part. I will definitely scan this documentation. I know I keep promising and I don't quite get to it with a lot of things. It takes time to do that, and it takes time that I don't typically have, unfortunately, because the limited free time I have, I'm either spending it with my family or I'm filming videos or doing, errands and stuff like that. And it takes a little while to assemble these into something coherent, but I am working on it. I started work on a bunch of manuals recently. Hopefully I'll post those somewhere, probably archive.org or maybe my own website, which is in development. Okay, so I'm gonna just open the box down here. Yeah, and you can see that my US, which is my freight forwarder, has not entirely put things back the way they were. All right, so this is the first board, and this is a 2708 programming station. It's a little bit wider than the standard mic boards are, but you can see it's got the mounting holes in the usual place because it's designed to be in a stack. And then this is the bus connector that they used, and basically you just crimped on a connector to your cable and plugged it in, bolted it on, and away you went. So yeah, that's this one's obviously a little bit later, I think, because it's got a solder mask. I can't see the dates on this thing, but it looks like, yeah, 1979, thereabouts. That's when this one was out. Okay, so that's the first board. I'll just put that there. Okay, this one's actually in a bag, which is great. Oh, I got a hanger. I don't know what that is. Mercury wetted contact relay. Okay, so that's a relay. Not really sure what it does. Got the remnants of a cable here and whatever it was attached to coming off. Looks like it used its own external power. I'll just hold it up so you can see. There's the back side, and there's the little relay thingy. Okay, so put that there. What do we got? Here's another one. Yeah, this is the board I initially thought was the 8008 CPU board. I got all excited, but it's definitely not. This is, I think, a parallel board of some sort. I see it's got a printer connection there. I don't know these chips off the top of my head, but they're some kind of UART, I think. And there's the back side. And again, this one's got a solder mask on it, so I think this was offered a little bit later. Also, we got in here, these are loose. That's never good. All right, so here's the next one. So this appears to be just a breadboard that somebody set up for some purpose or other. Looks like serial communications. That looks like a UART. Not really sure what all these cables are for. I'm wondering if this was some sort of a tape interface that somebody built. Certainly looks like it could possibly be that. But yeah, that's what's the date on here? Holy cow, that chip is 1969. Somebody had a parts drawer full of stuff sitting around. 72, 74. Yeah, there's some seriously old chips on there. So that's cool. Another board. This was one of the things that made me incredulous that he accepted my offer, because, you know, normally you get the base system if you're lucky, but this has all these expansion boards. So this is, what is this? This is another programmer, it looks like. Oh, 2716. Well, that's cool. And yeah, it's got a solder mask, so probably was released a little bit later on. Very cool though. Unfortunately, the socket looks like it took some damage at some point along the line. Okay, now we're down to the best part of this whole deal. Very carefully reach for it. Ta-da! That's it. That is the Mic 3 Martin Research. And as you can see, we've basically got a sandwich of 4 boards here. I believe the bottom one is a RAM board. The middle one, I'm not 100% sure what that is. I think that's the PROM board with the mic monitor on it. The second middle board is the CPU board. You can just barely see the CPU through there. Looks like a white ceramic 8080. And then the top is the part that gives it its unique look. This is the control keypad, whatever this is. And you've got your LED readout. So yeah, basically, as far as I know, these boards were all the same except for the CPU board. And I think it was literally, you could, just a couple modifications, and then you just swapped in your upgrade if you're upgrading from an 8008 to 8080. I doubt you would have downgraded the other way. But yeah, that is it. And then you can see on the back here, we've got our power connections, and we've also got the bus connector. And yeah, you basically just literally just crimp on connectors as you go and just keep adding. But yeah, that is amazing. Just to hold this in my hand is like, wow. Because I've only ever seen these in pictures. And this is only the second one I think I've ever seen come up on eBay. I looked on WorthPoint, there was one other one that came up, but I think it was a later Mic 8. But yeah, obviously there's going to be some restoration and testing work going on here. So this will be a video all unto its own. Unfortunately, we're missing a couple of the key tops, but we do have the buttons. So hopefully this all still works. And yeah, I really look forward to getting all this together and seeing what I can do with it. Yeah, again, to the seller, thank you so much for accepting my offer and letting me purchase this, because this is definitely going to have an honored place in my collection. And I will do my best to bring it back to life and hopefully pass it on to the next person that owns it one day, maybe a museum or something, in better condition than I found it. So yeah, that basically wraps up our little show and tell here. This is the first full, I'm not going to call them mini unfridgings anymore because there's nothing mini about this. This is running probably north of an hour now. Yeah, the next video to come up will be the screen you can see just barely in the background there. That is a big LED-based sign that has a computer inside. And it's a vintage computer, so I thought that would be a neat thing to talk about. And then other video projects, we've got one coming up on the Cosmac Elf. I'm trying to think of other stuff, just random things that I've been working on, not fully produced with the silly green screen effects and stuff, just things that I've got around the shop here. I've also got a video, I've got a whole stack of hard drives that I'm gonna work through and see which are live and which ones aren't. And yeah, that's about all I can tell you as far as channel announcements go. We do have a Patreon now. We had a few people that were inquiring about supporting the channel financially. So, I mean, if you really want to do that, it's basically like a tip jar. I can't commit to a full filming schedule the way a pro YouTuber does, because I don't really have the intention of turning this into a full-time career. But if you do want to sign up for that, there will be some behind-the-scenes stuff. And the money will basically go to, you know, restoration of these things, which probably ultimately are going to end up in a museum or somewhere anyway, right? I mean, I'm just a temporary caretaker. It'll also go towards projects and things like that. Maybe a better lighting system. This lighting system I got is a cheap Keyshow, I think it's called, from eBay. It's like a $100 set, and it's done fairly well. But I probably could benefit from having some more powerful lights and stuff just to better illuminate things. Anyway, that's pretty much it, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and have a lovely rest of your day.